Boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop. It's man, it's machine, it's Bradley Stalder, it's Ryan Reynolds here with you for another Wednesday night episode of Man versus Machine. Tonight, Ryan and I are going to dive into some very early fantasy football rankings and projections that I was able to develop over the last couple weeks. Been hard at work, spreadsheet king land. That's where I've been ruling, Ryan, is, you get lost in the sheets, crazy in the sheets, freak in the sheets. I'm no Michael Leone. So, look, it's been 70 degrees out the last 2 days. I'm glad I got these done before the weather got really nice. I was able to touch some grass, but we're back at it here to discuss these early 2025 rankings. Ryan, I shared with you my top how many? Top 20 quarterbacks, top 30 running backs, top 30 wide receivers, and top 20 tight ends. And we're going to talk. Look, I shared them with Ryan. I offered a couple thoughts, but really Ryan's going to drive the show because he is the man. He is the one who puts his hands in the dirt. He is the one who does not get lost in the spreadsheets, but instead offers me some semblance of centering. So Ryan, let's begin. What was your first takeaway from these rankings here?
My first takeaway was, a lot of them made sense. A lot of them, like, again, I'm a blend guy. I like data, and creativity. I'm like a science and math guy, or science and art guy, rather. Like that's how I am with most things. But with some of these things, that you blew my hair back. Where on your quarterback list, you had Baker Mayfield fourth, and I was just like, all right, I can't even, I can't even handle this. There's a few of them, we can chop up as many as you want. But in a lot of cases, I was also aligned, which that's probably what I'm more interested in, because when someone comes at something from my angle and they come at it from your angle and you both match, that's the hit rate's going to be higher in those situations.
Well, we can, one of the things that I was very high on, and I think that you are in agreement with, unfortunately, like, people come for debate. We're not going to debate in this show, but we are going to analyze Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. If you have been following Man versus Machine for some time, you know that Ryan has a lot of love for Caleb Williams, but my projections have Caleb Williams very high in the rankings compared to others. Right now, Caleb, you mentioned that Baker Mayfield was fourth. Right now, Caleb Williams projects as my number 5 quarterback in these best ball rankings. So it does weigh, upside, but also I'm a big believer in Ben Johnson. I'm a big believer in this offense, in the plan that the Bears have. It's clearly DJ Moore. It's going to be more Rome Odunze. Ben Johnson is going to enter with a plan for Caleb Williams' success. And that is not just, oh, we've got a good offensive scheme in play. We've got some good plays for Caleb Williams. Ryan, I've been very impressed this offseason with the offensive line, the attack the Bears have made this offseason with trading and signing offensive linemen who are proven high performers. I think this is the exact move that you want to do if you're Ben Johnson. You set up your rookie quarterback for success, protect him, give him time. And this is replicating what the Lions did in Detroit. The Lions had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They still do in 2025. But that's what I think Ben Johnson's plan is, to attack with this offense, is to shore up the trenches, make sure that Caleb has time to make the throws, the progressions, because he left a lot of meat on the bone, in terms of playmaking last year. I think it's right to be very high on Caleb Williams in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much to say about this. I'm going to start actually with Jared Goff with the Rams. His first year under Jeff Fisher, bad offensive line, bad play caller. Everyone thought he was a bust immediately. Gets a better offensive line, gets a real play caller. He's been a Super Bowl caliber quarterback on 2 different teams now. He's had a very good career. Caleb Williams, from a talent perspective, is an entirely different tier than Jared Goff. His out of structure ability is nuts. Last year, like time to throw and all that kind of stuff, like those stats lack context. There was a free runner on like every play against Caleb Williams last year. He took a lot of sacks. He also probably saved, 50 or so. with just otherworldly athleticism. So they corrected their problems. They went from a horrendous, horrifying play caller in Shane Waldron to a very good one. Ben Johnson can definitely be there. Kevin O'Connell. Their interior offensive line was a genuine travesty. Thuney, the center from Atlanta, Jackson, who I've always liked, even though, that group's, they're at least at the end of their peak, I'll say. So they don't have like a 6-7 year window left, but stability, increased massively. I agree with you. I could see DJ Moore having a monster year. On the Odunze front, I see more good than great with him as a player. Like I think he'll have a better year, but I think Caleb Williams is going to win an MVP during his rookie year contract. I don't know if it will happen this year, especially because the Bears are in a position where if they took a running back at 10, Gentry, the Boise State kid, it wouldn't be unreasonable, and it would fit with what Johnson did in Detroit, with wanting to run the ball with an elite athlete. So I love Caleb Williams. I love pretty much everything about the Bears right now.
One underrated part of Caleb Williams' game is his rushing ability. He last year held a 19.2% rush share, which in my projections puts him out this coming year for 81 rush attempts, 475 rushing yards, and between 2 and 3 rushing touchdowns. Look, I'll take that all day, every day, especially for a player who is not considered in the Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts tier of rushing quarterbacks. He's going to offer a lot in his legs. It was clear that, that was part of his game in college, was the extending the plays. But if the play continues to extend, guess what? He may move out of the pocket. And whether those are design runs, not as often, but making plays in space with his legs is something that we need to be, thinking about very deeply in terms of like, where is he going? He's right now the quarterback 11 approximately in the Underdog Streets. He's around there on other sites as well. So I've been drafting Caleb Williams everywhere. He's one of my easy clicks there in the best ball streets. I think there are very few other values at quarterback like Caleb Williams. So we want to be in on the Bears. They have the offensive pieces. Cole Kmet is still there. They brought in some blocking tight ends as well. There's not going to be this, Gerald Everett situation where he's stealing from Cole Kmet. No. This is going to be a much more exciting Bears offense, and we want to be in on that in 2025.
Yeah, I'm with you. One pushback I'll give. Caleb Williams is a great runner. I would definitely put him. He's a better runner than Jalen Hurts in my mind, for sure. Hurts is just a monster. The goal line runner. But one thing that I could see decreasing a little bit is, I think he'll have to run for his life a little less frequently this year. He's going to be better in structure, so I could see the volume going down, but his playmaking ability is still, out of this world. So still pretty good upside. I could see the volume taking a hit though.
Even if he falls to like a Kyler Murray level, which last year Murray was 17% rush share, dropping it just a little bit still gets him to about 70 rushes. For over 400 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. It really, even if he drops a little bit, I don't think that that's going to move the needle for me. I'm still drafting, the bejeebies out of Caleb Williams.
Oh, yeah.
And not just the team, not just his talent, but also he plays in a division that is highly competitive, Ryan. This is a division with the Lions, who we know are going to be putting up major points. This is with the Vikings, who we'll talk about JJ McCarthy and the Viking situation here in a second, but also the Green Bay Packers. My Packers, go Pack, go. There's no easy team. There's no slouch. All teams in the NFC North can be making the playoffs, and that's a reality when we're talking about possible game shootout scenarios that take up about a third of your schedule. Yes, we want to be, in game environments where Caleb Williams can get into shootout mode almost every week.
That might be the only division in football where literally all 4 teams could conceivably win. And all 4 of them could come in fourth too with a winning record. That's loaded division. And yeah, they're going to push the score. And I can't, if there's one division that I can't wait to see what happens in, it's the NFC North. No, hands down, no question.
Well, before we get into JJ McCarthy, the Minnesota Vikings, and some news update today, Ryan, a word from Matt Kelly about Fast Draft.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies and use your favorite Player Profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
That's right. Go start drafting faster. This weekend, I'll be hopping in the Fast Draft streets, Ryan, because I'll be in Ohio. It's very exciting. Exciting times. Going to go down to visit the family in Ohio, and we're going to draft some Fast Draft. So use promo code STACK. Use promo code STACK, and you can get 100% deposit match up to $25 using promo code STACK. All right, Ryan. Am I crazy to have JJ McCarthy at number 6 in my quarterback rankings?
I have 2 answers for this, Bradley. Yeah, that's too high, but being ambitious on him, I get it. You know, I don't really like blanket statements at all. Situation matters for some quarterbacks. Some, like Josh Allen, that dude would be good anywhere, you know. But if you put Tom Brady on a team with a bottom 5 offensive line his whole career, he doesn't have the career that he does, you know. Where I think McCarthy's one of those guys where fit matters big time, and the only situation I can recall that was better were Ben Roethlisberger being taken by the Steelers back then and Patrick Mahomes being taken by Andy Reid. You know, this offseason, the Vikings have shored up their offensive line. That's at least the top 5 fringe offensive line. You have Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison's an excellent complementary piece. TJ Hawkinson's a top 5 tight end, at least as far as talent goes. And, you know, you have the coach, too. So, and he has rushing upside, too. Like, I don't probably like him as a prospect as much as some other people do, but he has rushing upside, and he has it's just such a great environment. I'm definitely, we've been talking about this for weeks. The rookie quarterbacks the sophomore quarterbacks this year, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy. I'm going to have teams where I just have those guys, a lot of them.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And situation matters so much. In my projections, I have the Minnesota Vikings at the pass heaviest team in the NFL. You know, and if you look, I don't give 2 craps about the volume of passing argument from college, because people bring that all up all the time. Well,
Sure.
JJ McCarthy has not thrown that many passes in his career. He didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
1, because that's not how Harbaugh wanted to run his offense, and 2, they were blowing out teams.
Yeah.
He threw 90% of his passes in the first 3 quarters of games. Like, he didn't play almost at all in the 4th quarter of most of the national championship run with the University of Michigan Wolverines. He didn't need to be used, and he has the physical tools. He has the draft capital. He's top 10 draft pick last year. And we saw what Sam Darnold was able to do with this Vikings team. He put up a Pro Bowl season, set career highs in touchdowns and passing yards. Yet Justin Jefferson is there. You mentioned the weapons. Everything is the table is laid for JJ McCarthy. Now, is he going to have his hiccups? Of course, just like he missed his whole rookie year. We're going to expect some hiccups, but you mentioned his rushing share. I have him at about 14%, which, you know, is still respectable. It's a Brock Purdy level. It's a Justin Herbert level type of rushing share. But with that quarterback throwing that volume, we've seen it Kirk Cousins, we've now seen Sam Darnold, and now JJ McCarthy. The pathway is cleared for volume plus for JJ McCarthy, and we want to be in on this. Like, he's being drafted at quarterback outside the top 20 quarterbacks. We need a lot of exposure to McCarthy, especially now that news came out today, Ryan, that the Vikings are are shifting gears. There were significant talks about bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Tom Pelissero reported this this morning that the Vikings have moved on from the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes and are now going to target either a veteran quarterback, either via trade or free agency. They're not going to look to add Aaron Rodgers. They've been fielding calls for JJ McCarthy and been rejecting all of them because they want to move forward with McCarthy as the guy. I think this speaks to their confidence of his health. I think it also speaks to their confidence in him as the future of the Minnesota Vikings. So they let Sam Darnold walk. They said, JJ McCarthy, you're our guy. That's the move, Ryan. This is they're signaling. The Vikings are signaling to us that JJ McCarthy is the answer. So we should respond likewise.
Yeah. I mean, to go back into the bucket of I don't like blanket statements, I don't think every NFL decision maker is a genius or an authority. You know, I worked with Joe Banner. If Joe Banner talks about contracts or team building, I'm going to listen to Joe Banner. If Dave Gettleman talks about it, I don't care at all. If I was an NFL general manager, I think I could beat Dave Gettleman in decision making, you know? Same with the Raiders and the Seahawks with the Geno Smith and the Sam Darnold swaps. Like, I get that they're doing that, but like, I don't think those are great decisions. The Vikings and Kevin O'Connell specifically, he definitely had a hand in picking this guy. This is his guy. I trust Kevin O'Connell's ability to evaluate quarterbacks that are going to play on his team better than my own. So even if I hated JJ McCarthy, I'd be in on him because of the situation he's in.
Chuck jumps into the chat and asks or says he's the answer if the question is, how do we have less wins than last year?
Yeah, I mean that they might end up being better and worse because they, regression to the mean. They won a few games they probably shouldn't have last year, but and I could see there being some bumps in the road this year, but they're building for the long term and they actually have a legitimately really good roster now.
Yeah, so we should be very much in on JJ McCarthy. The value is just too great there. Last I looked, he's going outside the top 140 of draft picks, a player that can certainly offer some upside at the quarterback, especially if you push quarterback. Like, let's say you get one of those early quarterbacks, Daniels, Hurts, Allen, Jackson, one of those early picks. And then you just wait and you wait and you wait. You pick up a TJ Hawkinson, who's going way too late, in my opinion. He's the tight end 5, in ADP. You pick up a JJ McCarthy late. You pick up a Caleb Williams, as a mid-round quarterback. Those are the value plays, Ryan. Like, that's how you win at this game. Not only do you take the studs, you also take the value later. And you only need 2 quarterbacks really to be successful in these best ball streets. So that's how I like to attack that position.
For sure. I mean, it just real quick, Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy are 2 guys that could very clearly go 3+ rounds earlier next year. And those are the kind of guys I want to take shots on. I'm willing to be wrong in those scenarios.
Any other quarterbacks from the quarterback rankings, Ryan, that you want to come to the mat floor?
No, let's actually I do want to talk about the Colts. I think the Colts are interesting. I want to save Baker Mayfield let's do that after the draft. Let's see who they add before we get into a fight on air. but the Colts is interesting because Shane Steichen's actually a good play caller. Their offensive line just got gutted a little bit though. They had a top 10 line and they lost their center and their right guard. So they're going to be worse there, but I hate Daniel Jones. I sincerely mean that. I hope I never have to watch him play again, but he does 2 things very well. He runs in a straight line very fast, and he has great ball placement on slants. And Steichen's RPO offense, if Anthony Richardson fails and or misses time, like Daniel Jones he has more upside than most people would think, and it makes me sick saying that. But I like that you have both of these guys where you're kind of a little ambitious on both of them.
Yeah, it's hard to pick out. So the way I handled this situation, Ryan, was I projected how many 8 games for Anthony Richardson and 7 for Daniel Jones, and like you got to make a judgment. It's March 19th, Ryan. We have to make a judgment call right now. I would lean Anthony Richardson, but we can clearly see a pathway for Daniel Jones to get significant starts in 2025. But whoever it's going to be, as long as they are the starter for the full length of that football game, they are going to produce fantasy points for you. That's what Daniel Jones has done historically. He gets it done on the ground with his legs. A 15.7% rush share just last year. Anthony Richardson is at a 17.3% rush share. So whoever it is, they're going to get rushing attempts. They're going to get rush yards, and that means rushing touchdowns. Look, Daniel Jones, a better passing quarterback than Anthony Richardson, but the athlete of Richardson is so tantalizing. And if there's a player who can turn into Josh Allen, the path, like the 99th percentile outcome for Anthony Richardson is quarterback 1 overall. That's not the case for Daniel Jones. His 99th percentile outcomes like quarterback 10, like quarterback 8. So the upside is just so massive for Anthony Richardson, but we've seen the zeros. We've seen it fail and fail for 2 years. He can't stay healthy, whether that's through his own fault, whether it's the mental part, whether it is the team is not fully structured to support him, whatever the case may be. It's that the Colts knew that they needed an additional piece at quarterback to push Anthony Richardson and to figure out, is he the answer or not? This is year 3, and they need to know by the end of the year, are they going to pick up that 5th-year option?
Yeah, it's also a case, too, if, say, he misses a month, they don't really have to radically change the offense with Daniel Jones. So it's a good fit for both of them. And I agree, from a rushing standpoint purely, I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is probably a better comp than Josh Allen. I think he has no shot to be Josh Allen. I do think he could be Jalen Hurts, though. I do think that's possible. That dream's not entirely dead. And again, if we're going to swing and miss, I want to swing and miss on upside. And like you said, there's a narrow path to him being, the top performer in fantasy for at least a stretch. So I like that you're bullish on him.
All right. Well, we finished up quarterbacks. Let's turn the page to the running back room. Ryan, there's a lot to shake out, as we get closer to the draft. There's some holes to be filled in the running back rooms. There was talk about DeAndre Swift getting traded or cut, but really he's got a lot of guaranteed money this year. It doesn't really make sense for the Bears to move away from him at this point in the offseason. If any move happens, it probably happens at the draft, or it happens throughout the year. Like like maybe DeAndre Swift starts the season as the full-time guy and then fades away later on in the season. Like that's a pathway. But for right now, we have to assume that the Bears are going to roll with DeAndre Swift as the guy. And we saw the DeAndre Swift, Jahmyr Gibbs role be extremely fantasy friendly because, look, we have to think that Ben Johnson is going to bring in a bruiser. He's going to bring in a between the tackles guy because Swift is not built to handle that type of. He's more of a speed guy. Outside the tackles, that's how he makes his living. But Swift right now is my projected running back 12. He got massive volume last year. He was one of only a handful. These were the running backs last year, Ryan, who had at least 60% rush share. Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Joe Mixon, Kyron Williams, and Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift. That's it.
That's actually kind of shocking that Swift. I watch every game, but the Bears game I watch like live every week, and I wouldn't have guessed that he belonged in that cluster. Here's the one thing I'll say: I don't do very much drafting until the draft. I think my primary edge is on roster construction and roster talent value and the schedule. So I do most of my drafting in mid to late May. But the Bears are suddenly in a position where they have 3 picks. I think there are 3 top 45 picks, and this is a very running back heavy class. They could take Genty at 10, and it wouldn't be completely preposterous. They could take, I don't know how long Henderson's going to last, but if they took Henderson in the early second round, I think that's possible too. So I think they're going to take one of these guys. But if they don't, Swift is a smash. So here's what I'll say. Whoever the Bears have at running back, you probably want. So I'm just not entirely sure how that's going to shake out yet.
Yeah, but the value is already baked in, Ryan. He's being drafted outside the top 100 of fantasy players. Like he is already getting the massive discount. That's one of the reasons why, like, let's assume that he gets Quinshon Judkins, between the tackles guy, a little a plus. You could still see Swift getting a 10 to 12% target share and getting 35% of the rushes and being a flex play lots of weeks, especially if the Bears are a good offense. And that's in a coexist. And we saw David Montgomery, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs coexist. Swift is not as good as Gibbs,
right?
But 80% of Jahmyr Gibbs is still like an RB2.
Sure.
So give me Swift at value, and that's one of the reasons why. Yes, a lot of it's a placeholder, but there's no one else in that backfield really. Roshan Johnson's a nobody. Travis Homer's a nobody. Like, it's DeAndre Swift, and we like to project that these offenses are going to draft a running back, but we saw like Dallas have a massive. Now, hopefully the new Bears and the Dallas Cowboys are not the same. But we all projected a running back to go to Dallas, and it didn't happen last year, Ryan. So that's why I have him very high. I want, like, based on these projections, I want people to be drafting more DeAndre Swift at value at round 10 plus.
Yeah, sure. Where he's going, I think it's completely fine, because even if they bring in a big name, he can still return there. But what I'll say about Dallas is this too: Dallas actually doesn't have a very good roster anymore. They have so many holes to fill, where the Bears suddenly do not. They do not.
Yeah, the other component, Ryan, that I know we've talked about the Dallas Cowboys before in like offshoots, how Jerry wants to sell jerseys, and that's why maybe he takes Genty in this draft. I don't know, but
I hope not.
One of the things that I don't know if you've noticed this, but the Cowboys have been more money balling over the last 2 years. They have been not making big splash moves. They have instead signed their guys. They have pushed running back based on the value. That was the argument coming after the draft was, well, we just didn't find a good value in the draft. Well, what do you mean, Jerry? Like, that someone else is driving the boat in terms of what value is happening. So you look at who they signed in free agency this offseason. What was it? 6 or 7 of them were former first round picks. Another, like, Javonte Williams was a former second round pick. Like, they're looking at the old man's trash, like one man's trash, thrown away players who had just good draft capital and are trying to moneyball. That's something that I've been noticing over the last like year and a half that I've been monitoring the Cowboys and their construction, which it may lead to more pushing of the value. Like, they're not going to grab the sexy free agents. They've not been drafting the sexy, rookies. They've not been making the splashes because I think someone else is moneyballing behind the scenes. Ryan, do you have any take on that? Have you thought about, am I like completely off?
No, that's I hadn't thought of that. I actually love teams that do that. That's a Brian Cashman thing with the turn of the century Yankees. We just, you have a failed first rounder, I'm going to give him a short-term contract and see what I can get out of him. I love that. The point I was trying to make is they just don't have a very good roster anymore.
No.
This is how you can change that. If you say, like, you sign 7 guys that are failed top 40 picks and even 2 of them hit, that's how you create margin. They just, all of a sudden, they've been bleeding talent. They're kind of like Buffalo without Josh Allen. They've been bleeding talent for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So they'd be crazy to take a running back because they're not ready for one. But I'm going to check that out. Like, I believe you, but I actually love that philosophy. I love doing that.
All right. We've chatted about DeAndre Swift. Any other running backs stand out to you, either that you agree with or disagree with from the list of the top 30 running backs? I know 7 of them are rookies, and you don't. Yes, for on the record, 7 of the top 30 running backs in my projected rankings are rookies. But any others that stand out to you, Ryan?
I'm going to fade. I don't know if anyone was higher on Josh Jacobs than me last year. I'm probably going to fade him outright this year. So I like that you're low on him. I was a little surprised you're as low as you are on Derrick Henry. I think he's a unicorn player where you bury him when he's dead just because of the spot he's in too. So, but then again, age is eventually going to catch up to this guy. So I could see it being now. Otherwise, I think everything else you have is pretty fair. Nothing really made me sick to my stomach like Baker Mayfield at 4. But it's you love Devon A-Chain, that's for sure. I also think it's fair. I think it's fair where you have him.
Look, Achane last year, 45% rush share. I put him at 172 rush attempts, 918 projected yards, about 6 rushing touchdowns. But really what stands out for me, and maybe Ryan, your take, I think, is going to be important here. You mentioned Jonnu Smith getting a lot of targets. Devon Achane also getting a lot of targets. 82 projected targets for me in this Miami Dolphins offense, 67 receptions, 500 receiving yards, about 4 receiving touchdowns. Ryan, I still think the offense is going to revolve around Devon Achane, Jonnu Smith, and then I don't know if there's an answer of whether Tyreek Hill is going to return to form or not. We know that the wrist injury played a significant factor in last year. He's my way too early wide receiver 11. Tyreek Hill is, which is kind of a hedge because he was a top 3 wide receiver last year in drafts, going into the 2024 season. So I had to move him down a little bit, but still a 24% target share. I expect 6-7 touchdowns, 1,300 yards, assuming that he's healthy. How can you fade the cheetah too far?
Yeah, I agree. He's a guy that I'm probably going to want to be even on. I think there's every year there's a number of important solves. Christian McCaffrey's probably number 1. I think the 2 we talked about, the Bears offense and the Vikings offense, are towards the top. And I think what to do with Tyreek Hill exactly is because he's the sort of guy who can hurt you. If he was just playing through an injury last year and he still has what he has, he's on the short list of guys who could finish wide receiver 1 overall. But it did look like he was starting to lose a step. What is he, 31, 32 now? And his game is
speed,
completely built on wild athleticism. It's not like he's a contested catch player like Mike Evans, who can still make it work when he ages. So I'm with you. I think hedging your bets with him essentially, where you want to pretty much be even with the field, is the move I'm going to make on him too.
You mentioned in the pre-show meeting that you were not as high on T. Higgins, and I have Higgins at 4. I have Chase at 2 in these projected best ball value rating rankings. Higgins and Chase signed their extensions. Burrow, Chase, and Higgins comprise of more than 40% of the Bengals cap. There was no other choice, though. They had to extend these guys, and bad teams stay bad, Ryan.
They do. They're gonna be a fantasy gold potentially. Maybe their defense has been getting worse for years. They fired the defensive coordinator, even though they've given them nothing for half a decade. Trey Hendrickson wants out. Or at least he's trying to leverage them into a big contract. So that could be the worst defense in football with an MVP caliber quarterback and the best wide receiver duo in the game. So I get it. There's some names up here like Puka Nacua is one where, with Cooper Kupp completely gone out of the picture, not that he was in the picture last year really, but Stafford's a kingmaker. He's already made Puka Nacua. I would rather have Nacua than T. Higgins. Depending on who the Giants, end up having to settle for at quarterback, I might rather have Malik Neighbors, but I'm still fine with Higgins being a wide receiver 1. I do think the upside's there, but injury stuff too, man. He's that dude, I've gone beyond my bias with this stuff in season long leagues, but like he's on the short list of players like I literally don't want in season long because he's questionable every week.
Look, best ball, sign me up.
Mhm.
But whether T Higgins slots into your wide receiver 2 spot, that's always a challenge.
Oh yeah.
So Ryan, I need your take. Is Jerry Jeudy for real?
So this was very clever because like you have him. I think it's the spot above Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like part of me wants to like find the remnants of my hair and just tear them out. Part of me is just like, Bradley, you can't do that. Amon-Ra is like a model of consistency. The offense is going to be different, but they still have the same foundation in place. But here's the thing. I think it was week 17 with Dorian Thompson Robinson or whatever that guy's name is. Like, there's people who there's people where I won't bother remembering their names because I know I don't need to remember them long term, and he's one of them. I can't stand watching that guy play. But Jeudy had didn't he have 11 catches in a game late in the season, even with him? Winston, fine. No, Winston turned him into a super producer. I kind of don't understand why they're rolling with Kenny Pickett and not Jameis Winston. I'm not like a big Jameis Winston guy. But like that's a little bizarre to me. But he showed, and I liked him coming out. He was just in a weird situation in Denver. He showed that he might be quarterback proof. So I think it's sneaky fascinating that you're high on him, and that's probably an idea I wouldn't have had on my own that I now have because of you.
So one of the things that's different, Ryan, this year or in 2024 than Judy's other seasons in Denver, he played in 2021 76% in the slot, 2022 54% in the slot, 2023 59% in the slot, in 2024 35% in the slot. And if we look at like his slot percentages, it was in the low 30s pretty much the rest of the from week 6 onward. There's only like 1 or 2 games where he's outside 30% or so of the slot. So the Browns have like realigned him. Like Jerry Jeudy wins on the outside. And I know coming out, he was often pegged as like, oh, he's a crisp route runner. Oh, he's like, got the jukes and, he can do that type of thing. And I think the Browns and Kevin Stefanski see him more as like a win on the outside type of guy, like extend the field, make a guy miss downfield. And that's where you can make a big play. And that's where we saw more explosion from Jerry Jeudy. Like week 17, 12 receptions, 94 receiving yards, 18 targets. Week 15, 11 reception, 108 yards, 14 targets. Like this is a guy from week 9 on had 6 double-digit target games. And yes, some of it was Jameis Winston, but as you mentioned, some of it was most certainly not Jameis Winston. So Jerry Jeudy, 25% target share. And who else is going to get the ball? Like maybe you could make the argument Cedric Tillman. Maybe it's David Njoku. Maybe it's, fill in the blank. Jerry Judy's the most prolific player on this. He had a 25% target share last year. One of the stickier stats year to year is target share. So, and we haven't seen this situation change. That's probably going to be a quarterback upgrade from Deshaun Watson, who is arguably the worst quarterback we've ever seen in a half season worth of play. Like all of the metrics, like you look at all these metrics, Deshaun Watson, arguably the worst quarterback. And then once Deshaun goes down, you see just Jerry Jeudy exploding with even replacement level quarterback play.
Yeah, I mean, here's one take I'm going to throw at you too. If the Browns take Shedeur Sanders with the 2nd overall pick, I think that's a very good thing for Jerry Jeudy. I think that's one of the ways this hits its ceiling. So, yeah, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins was always a quarterback proof guy. All of a sudden in this offense, Jeudy looked like he was last year. Again, man, like you put this on my radar. I'll end up having more of them now than I was planning on.
Yeah, Jeudy versus so Amon-Ra, yes, a 27% target share. But I looked at his standard deviation and Jerry Jeudy 8.1, Amon-Ra 8.0. So like similarly distributed. But Jeudy just slightly over Amon-Ra, probably because of the ADOT, because of their like Amon-Ra gets the slot most of the time, and then Jeudy can win just further down the field. Just adds extra yards, adds extra points just a little bit. Even if you look, Amon-Ra better, I think, overall is from an NFL perspective, but Jeudy like put himself on the fantasy radar last year. We need to put some respect on his, and he's being drafted outside the top 5 rounds. Like he's a round 6 selection. Jerry Jeudy, compare that to, literally every other player at wide receiver I have projected is a higher ADP. Jerry Jeudy is that discount. He could be what Cortland Sutton was last year, where it's like a wide receiver tier break.
I like that. Now listen, I don't have to say anything. You've sold me on him. I'm in. Especially in the 6th round, like you sold me. I'm in. You definitely changed my opinion.
Well, that's why we have these. Conversations to discuss, to learn, to think about, to get different perspectives. Man versus machine. You know what else is great? Not just the offense, but Fast Draft has a defense tournament. So let's hear more from Matt Kelly about Fast Draft's D-Up tournament.
I am proud to announce that Fast Draft now has an all-defense game called D-Up. That's right, fans of IDP finally have a real money best ball game that they can play. No more manually setting up leagues every time you want to do a draft. No. Now you can play for 10 grand, 2,000 to first. Could draft up to 30 teams, all defense. And the best part, balanced scoring, tackles for loss, pass breakups. It all factors in. Just draft 6 defensive players, top 4 into your lineup every week. It's that easy. It's so easy that this isn't just for IDP people. If you love the NFL, then you'll love this game. And for the first time with Fast Draft, you can sweat both sides of the ball on Sunday. So use your host's promo code to get a $25 deposit match, and you'll love this D-Up contest because it's about time we got one.
Hey, listen, I have to make sure I don't use his real life name because he's an engineer in real life. But my guy Tackle Box Props, he's the sort of dude where if you see him in your draft in the D-Up tournament, you're probably in trouble. That dude, he's the one guy I'd be afraid of if I saw in the draft. But I'm a defense guy. I'm going to be dabbling in that, once the schedule release comes out.
I mean, you love to see it. Tackle Box Props.
Oh, yeah, he's good.
I've seen him on the Twitter streets.
He's
That's
good.
I've heard of him, Ryan.
You'd like him. He's good.
Mm. All right. Do you want to wind down any last thoughts on the wide receiver rankings before we move to some tight ends and last thoughts here overall?
Wide receiver. Let me give a quick answer here. No, I mean, I think everything you had was pretty fair. Yeah, just I'm surprised you're low on Puka Nacua. I'm very surprised about. I really am. That's like almost shocking to me.
I mean, Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua together.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
I don't think Devontae has lost too much of a step, and I think that this is a fair ranking with Devontae Adams also there. Like Garrett Wilson still got 150 plus targets last year with Devontae Adams there for half the season, but Devontae Adams, my wide receiver 21. Malik Neighbors is what not Malik Neighbors. Puka Nacua is wide receiver 10. About wide receiver 10. So I think that's because when I was drafting before the Devontae Adams signing, I was thinking Puka Kingmaker, like Stafford Kingmaker, like wide receiver 1 overall is within the range of outcomes. And I still think that that's within the range of outcomes, but I think it's less likely with the Devontae Adams signing. So I wanted to account for what is the pathway for Puka Nacua to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Well, he's not only he's got to out target Devontae Adams on his own team, but he also has to out play like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Ladd McConkey, all players that I have projected to hire. And I'm also ridiculously high on DJ Moore. I'm a believer. This is a team-wide take not just a DJ Moore take. I feel like I have so much Jamar Chase and DJ Moore on teams because they're so affordable. But when we get down to like Devontae Adams, I think his price is like leveled out. Whereas like I don't think Nakua, I think he's more of a 1-2 turn guy now instead of like the 5th, the 7th overall pick.
So it's Adams cutting into his target share, his workload. So there's also a world where Stafford should probably benefit from this too. But
Yes.
let me touch on this real quick too. Notice I haven't said anything about DJ Moore. Like I think that's a little aggressive, but I like it. I like it. Same with Ladd McConkey. I think that's a little aggressive, but I like it. I think they belong in that cluster. But I feel better about your Puka Nacua stance now. That makes sense. Adding Devontae Adams is not the same as like bringing in DeMarcus Robinson last year.
No. If anything, if they didn't bring in a player like Adams, like what it's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, like they're in the same breath. But bringing in Adams, last year Adams had 24% target share and 23.7. I project in 15 games, 127 targets, 75 receptions, 933 receiving yards, between 7 and 8 touchdowns. Like you're going to get touchdowns from Adams. And I think in a half PPR scoring where, in these, that's what these rankings, are based on. Touchdowns just are so valuable. And Nakua has not been like a touchdown maker. He's not been like the red zone, end zone. And like, sure, touchdowns can vary. I'm not going to debate that strongly. But he's never been the focal point of like the red zone offense.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think he's one of the luckiest dudes in the world landing where he did. So I think he's good. He's better than I thought he was going to be, but I don't necessarily think he's like a super athlete or anything. So I think that's fair. Also, it just made me realize you don't have Joe Burrow in your top 20 quarterbacks. So after the draft, when we revisit this, I'm definitely going to verbally assault you over that.
Is that right? Did I overlook that?
I don't.
Are you calling me out live on the stream? Is this throwing me under the bus? Did I really mess that up so badly?
No.
Where's Burrow?
I just be curious.
Control F Burrow. Oh no, there was an error in the data, Ryan.
Okay.
So no.
So no verbally assaulting. No, it just dawned on me like you have Chase 2nd and Higgins 4. Like where on earth is Joe Burrow? It makes sense now.
Why did I? Oh, I must have accidentally put. Okay, I put in 0 games for Joe Burrow. Don't know why.
Okay.
15. I put in 15 games. Let me update it, and we're updating live on the stream. Everyone, update live on the stream. Joe Burrow ends up as my quarterback 2.
Nope. Problem fixed.
There we go. Thank you, Ryan. So it would go Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are the top 4.
So basically, and this is where I was going with this. So that's why I was looking for Burrow. I think the 2 quarterbacks that have the best shot to lead the league in passing yards are probably Burrow, who's probably like the overwhelming favorite. I don't know if that's been released yet, but I think Stafford's got to be in the conversation too, with Adams and
Stafford's got to be, close there. Anytime, the problem with Stafford is it has to be the rushing. Like it just, that's the issue. You do have a pathway for Stafford to throw for 4,600 yards, 4,500 yards. I do have him projected at 4,324 passing touchdowns. And for him to get to that number, you needed like a Devontae Adams. But yeah, the rushing is just, he's a 0 in that game. And
plus their red zone offense runs to the running back again.
And the pathway for like Stafford to get into a top 5 week consistently, he would need to put up MVP level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those days are behind him, Ryan.
They could be. They definitely could be. And if they're not, they're on the door. They're knocking on the door of that being completely over.
All right. Any thoughts on the tight end rankings? I know they're a little wonky, but maybe a couple stand out to you that you do like too.
No, I mean, I was surprised you didn't have Brock Bowers first, but I think having Trey McBride first, I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't. Again, like I mentioned on air, the fact that Jonnu Smith is fifth and like it makes sense is, probably the most peculiar thing from the 2024 season. Just him late in the year, especially like the first drive of the game, like he's the primary read on like 3 of the first 4 passes of the game, like multiple times, just wild stuff. No, I don't. Nothing here really. I think everything's reasonable. I like it.
So one of the things about Trey McBride that I want to put on people's radar is using the Player Profiler data analysis tool. You can look up expected touchdowns. And last year, Trey McBride had 8.2 expected touchdowns. 8.2.
Yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. So just off the top of my head, he got tackled at the one a few times. So yeah.
Right. Whereas, I'm projecting Trey McBride for between 6 and 7. I think that's a fair amount. And you put him at 6 or 7 touchdowns, that is going to put you significantly ahead of Brock Bowers, even if Bowers gets the quarterback upgrade, which, Geno Smith is a quarterback upgrade over whatever the Raiders were throwing at Brock Bowers last year. Because they were putting up similar target shares. They were putting up similar yardage. Bowers scored a few more touchdowns, but McBride should have had a ton more touchdowns. What did I say? Over 8 touchdowns, in terms of expected.
It's the Raiders quarterback situation is weird for Bowers, and I still haven't worked this out. He did have just a terrible group last year, but they also, basically treated him like Ryan Fitzpatrick treated Brandon Marshall, where, there were times where he was the only receiver on the field. Geno Smith is definitely better than what they had, but I don't know if he's better for Brock Bowers. I'm not 100% sure that he is. I still haven't worked.
Or is it that Pete Carroll's not good for Brock Bowers? Because
that's
part
of it too.
That, Ryan, you could see Loveland getting Bowers getting mayored with Loveland.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chip Kelly's good for Bowers. I guess JSN had a big year because, I don't really see Bowers as a tight end. He's basically Travis Kelce,
right?
So it's just, I'm still undecided on that if that's actually better for him. But again, for Raiders fans, Geno Smith's definitely better than Desmond Ridder and Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, that was disaster zone. I have McBride projected for 5 more receiving yards than Brock Bowers, and 5 more receptions for Brock Bowers, but 2.5 more touchdowns than Bowers. I have more confidence in the Arizona offense than I do the Vegas Raiders. The targets are within 2. They're virtually the same. Who's cheaper? Oh, Trey McBride by a full round. Give me Trey McBride.
Sure. I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah. The tough one that I'm struggling with, Ryan, is Travis Kelce, because Kelce had a 22% target share last year. The only other tight ends outside of McBride and Bowers to have a 20% target share last year was Hunter Henry. It's McBride, Bowers, Kelce, and Henry. That's it. And you can't. Kelce is being drafted in the 90s right now overall. It's hard to find production at the tight end position, even if it's a crusty old Travis Kelce. He could put up a Zach Ertz year, like what Ertz did last year, and Ertz put up, top 7 tight end season and gave you good value. So I have Kelce at 3, but it's McBride and Bowers are the 1A and the 1A again. And then at a distant 2 is Kelsey.
Yeah.
Is that the right move? Is there another tight end that maybe Hawkinson is the only other one that I think should be in that conversation? But
Maybe the thing with Minnesota is they have so many mouths to feed. And I could
Right.
see Hawkinson getting Laported a little bit, like I could see him being the guy who's a good player but takes the volume hit. We talked about this about a month ago. If you're getting Travis Kelce in the 9th round, even though he's old and etc., I'm comfortable being wrong on that. I'm comfortable swinging and missing on that. I'm more worried about injury than him being completely, useless due to age, because his game is more reliant on savvy. It's a bit like, I remember talking about Adam Thielen like beating up Cooper DeJean, and it's because just quick little veteran shifts that created small margins of separation. You have Patrick Mahomes still. That's like his most trusted asset. So I'm fine with that. Mark Andrews is maybe a little bit low, but like again, I actually think that's smart. Like he has
Mandrews
good upside, but his volume is, yeah.
We saw the volume take a hit last year. Rashad Bateman took a step forward in 2024. The DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be a zero in the receiving game. Isaiah Likely, earned last year a 13% target share. Andrews 15-16% target share. It's the touchdowns. Like Andrews is now more of a touchdown dependent tight end one. That's how we should treat him. Having him in the same conversation as a Zach Ertz, Sam Laporta, a Tucker Kraft, like Dallas Goedert, like that's all one tier down. And unfortunately, Mandrews has fallen into that tier.
Yeah, I don't disagree. He, like you said, he's a touchdown dependent tight end. So he'll give you a couple spike weeks, but he's going to give you, 4.5s on underdog as well.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, any last thoughts about these? Any last players you agree with, disagree with, wanna dive in for another minute before we call it quits for the people?
No, these are always a good exercise, man. Like we should do this, kind of regularly throughout the offseason, I'd say. Just picking apart stuff. I like it. Most of it I agree with though, dude.
Excellent. Oh, let me take a look. I'm gonna pick somebody.
Ready.
Okay. AJ Brown.
No, see, I like that you mentioned him. I actually think you having him where you do, I love it personally. I think it's almost perfect.
For the people at home, AJ Brown is my wide receiver 19. My early projections, wide receiver 19. And it has mostly to do with volume for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's the passing volume is so low. We look at what the Eagles did last year in terms of passing rate, and the Philadelphia Eagles 49.57% pass rate. They ran more than they passed. For a player like AJ Brown, who gets a 23-24% target share, is sharing with Devonta Smith, is sharing with Dallas Goedert, is sharing with Saquon Barkley. When you have a smaller pie, even for an alpha like AJ Brown, he's my wide receiver 19, and he's behind, Cortland Sutton. He's behind Jeudy, but he's one spot ahead of Jordan Addison.
No, I mean, that cluster of Mike Evans, Sutton, I would have Drake London ahead of him. Godwin, again, he's hurt, so who knows. Brown, I'd have McLaurin probably ahead of Brown, but I think he belongs in that group. Like you said, he was literally iced out of the offense a lot last year. So it's not really an indication of what kind of player he is. Just like you said, they're actually a run-heavy team. Yeah. Those don't really exist anymore.
Nope, they do not exist anymore. Ryan, this has been great diving into some early projections, early rankings. Any last words for the people before we peace out?
No, man, this is, it's always a pleasure talking shop with you, dude. And, we'll do this kind of thing a number of times again.
All right. On behalf of Ryan, I'm Bradley. You can follow Ryan on the X Machine at Ryan Reynolds NFL. You can follow me on Twitter at FF Stalder. Until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everybody.